This is Adomako Man, and you are tuning in to the Producing Peace podcast, a podcast that celebrates the vibrant tastemakers shaping NYC's cultural landscape. From artists to activists, we spotlight individuals driving positive change and shaping the future of our city. So I'm sitting with the creator of Young Fleur Live. As the marketing communications director for the Chris Habana brand, he brings a unique vision to every project. Additionally, he works as a creative director, curator, and writer, seamlessly blending his talents to produce innovative and impact work. I'm sitting with Eddie Asante, aka Young Fleur.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing all right. I am even better now that I'm here in this space with you. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I've been wanting to sit down with you for a while. It's crazy to even, think about the idea that of how long I've known you. And I first wanted to know, just so we can give context for those who are tuning in,
Sure.
where are you originally from?
Okay. Oh my god, I feel like I should spit out my gum. I forgot
I
I
didn't
had gum.
I didn't even realize you had gum,
Oh
so
my
I
god,
just
my
do that
fault, my
now.
fault.
Yeah.
Okay. But anywho, so unchic. Anyway,
Do your thing.
my background and who I am. Well, my name is Eddie Edmund Asante. A lot of folks know me as Eddie. I'm from the Bronx, New York, born and raised. But my family originates from Ghana, and so I claim Ghana, of course. So Ghana's home. Bronx, New York is home. Yeah.
We're gonna be jumping around a lot because
I'm here for a jump.
Yeah, the jump off.
Okay.
When I first met you, because first of all, I connected with you so hard. I'm gonna pace myself because I am so excited to be sitting here with you.
Okay, look,
Really,
it's finally, this has been a moment in the making, I feel like, so.
I
let's do
agree.
it.
I mean, it's interesting because when I the last person that I interviewed from the Bronx, prior to Yinka was Gia Love. And one thing that she said was that, if anyone has anything negative to say, this is not verbatim, but, people could reference the video when they see it. Like, she basically, in short, said that if you have anything ill to say about the Bronx, that it's anti-Black. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Because you just mentioned that you are from the Bronx.
Yeah. Would I say that
do you have a connection to the Bronx as...
I mean, of course. I mean, let me not say that because I feel like I've heard stories of people who say like no matter like their origins or their home, they've always felt like they never felt connected and they were always supposed to be somewhere else. And I never necessarily felt that growing up. Like, it felt like normal to me. I mean, I feel like looking back on it, I definitely enjoyed the privilege of living around a mix of folks and also having a very genuine, direct connection back to my Ghanaian roots as well through the community because there are so many Ghanaians in the Bronx, and it's one of the most populated places of Ghanaian folks, if not the most, outside of Ghana itself. And even if you don't, like, people know in Ghana they talk about the Bronx like everyone knows it because everyone's got family down there. You know what I mean?
Really?
So yeah, or at least everyone I spoke to or family friends or people in the area, like everyone had the Bronx. They know like I've got an aunt, an uncle, or something. So in a way, it served as like a everyday bridge to those things as far as culture. But in terms of like the idea of not liking the Bronx, being anti-Bronx, being anti-Black, I feel like that, from my personal experience, kind of discounts the fact that there are other folks from other backgrounds that are there and have genuine roots and like a genuine like neighborhood or like area that has a story that's connected to them, and those aren't necessarily directly Black stories, although we all are kind of in New York, everyone's sidled next to each other. So all of that to say, I don't think that that's entirely true because the Bronx to me isn't entirely Black. I feel like a good portion of the impactful history there is Black, but it's not just Black. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like where I live, the Dominicans run everything. You know what I mean? So like I feel like it's a lot more widespread than that. So I would say personally, I don't think necessarily having a problem with the Bronx or being anti-Bronx is inherently anti-Black, but it also depends on what you're talking about because there are also visual markers of other people's culture mixed into that melting pot. So depending what part of that pot, what part of that soup you don't like, you might be coming for a very specific person or group of people, and not just the Bronx as a whole. So,
well, what part of the Bronx did you grow up in?
Well, I grew up in the South Bronx, Highbridge, represent.
That's considered the South?
I'm sorry?
Highbridge is considered the South?
Yeah.
I would think that's
by Yankee Stadium in them.
Really?
Yeah.
When I think, excuse me.
No problem.
I usually think because I usually think like that side is like maybe like west, and then like south and east is kind of like Mount Haven and like, you know.
Oh, you mean Mount Haven? No, I mean, yeah, the Yankee Stadium area is very
like, because you know, like now, I mean, I hate that I'm even mentioning this, but like people are like Sobro.
Yeah, the Sobro, the Piano District, child. Like it's so many names to create so many different movements and marketing ploys. That's what it's all about. But I mean, no, to my understanding, the South Bronx, like Yankee Stadium area, has always been like South Bronx and like kind of like Highbridge proper. So yeah, that's where I'm from. Where I lived and spent most of the time. No matter where I kind of moved around in the Bronx, it was mostly there, except for when I moved uptown and I was living all the way up near the like Mashalu area, and then came back down. So, but I definitely claim specifically the South Bronx area more than anywhere else. I don't know about the uptown stuff. Even though I'm uptown, I don't claim uptown like that. I'm very much South Bronx based.
Would you say like there's any special connections you have to the Bronx in terms of like your upbringing, like any special moments?
I mean, I did everything there. Yeah. So every single milestone up until I turned maybe 18 or 19, all was set place in the Bronx. Like schooling, family, education, health. But well, schooling and education is the same. But like all the big kind of like moments that I would, you know, count as being like significant parts of my life, all took place in the Bronx. They were all staged there. So, you know, I mean, I don't know where to begin. All my summers there, the classic New York summer, a Bronx summer is everything. Playing in the fire hydrants, I wouldn't do that ever today, but like back then it was all I needed. Like that was my water park, you know what I mean? And then and other things, I feel like you want me to name like a specific thing?
I mean, you know, my whole thing is like there are people who are not from the Bronx who may not know about the Bronx, and I'm just curious about like what your particular experience as like Eddie Asante, as young Fleur, like what your connections are to the Bronx. Like what resonates with you about this borough? So, because you've been here for so long. Have you lived in any other borough before?
No, I've never lived in another city, another borough. All I know is the Bronx. Like I'm a Bronx head.
Oh wow.
But as far as my experience, like I mean, the best thing is just like being a kid, being around tons of people that look exactly like me. I didn't realize that was not the norm in other places, or like I would just be in other spaces until I got to high school, and I was like, oh, there's a bunch of white folks here. Like I didn't know. Y'all were in the Bronx too. I didn't know. Okay, you came from Manhattan up here. Okay, that's not usually what y'all do in my upbringing. You know, folks aren't touching here unless, you know, the only white folks that I remember encountering and like speaking to on a regular basis were teachers or cops. So as far as my involvement with white people, like in that neighborhood or like in the Bronx in general, it was very slim. Like for the most part, I was engaging with other Black, African, Black American, Caribbean folks, Hispanic folks, of course. So like, you know, just being able to be around all that melding of culture, that honestly I feel like some folks take for granted. Like we don't realize how rich and how magical it is that we can just take part in these experiences just because we woke up this morning. And so like I think it's definitely something that I value a lot more now, looking back, of course. But like just all I can think of is just being around kids that look just like me, that like just because like growing up you meet so many new people. It's just like that was the one time in my life where it was like we're all from a similar kind of origin in some way. And yeah, just like the festivity of it, like just celebrating, enjoying the streets, like, you know, like just hanging out, and everyone's pretty friendly in my experience. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if this is going to jump into another question, but I feel like people have their own idea of the Bronx. And the things that, you know, people like to say what they say. And I always say, I don't care what anyone who's not from the Bronx has to say about the Bronx. I actually don't care what anyone who's not from New York has to say about the Bronx or boroughs, period. Because I feel like people jump in for the clout and the Instagram meaniness of it all when like certain things have real weight and value in our space and in our land, just like where they come from.
Yeah.
Certain things are their thing, but they're not there right now.
Yeah.
They're over here.
They're here.
So you're gonna jump in on the Bronx, Brooklyn jokes, the chopped cheese, the rats, and the subway ride, and the dollar pizza, and blah blah blah, because it's the law, it's the nature of the land. These are our talking topics. These are our joking topics. So people will jump in and get their digs in, but I'm like, not too much. You know what I mean? Like the Bronx, to me, I really don't care what anyone says. You know what I mean? The Bronx will always be a beautiful place of opportunity, of peace, of calm. You know what I mean? Like I chill on a week. Like I think about my weekends there where it's just completely quiet, and people like don't know that because there's all these preconceived notions.
Let them know.
Rare, but like I have so many calm, peaceful moments where I tell people like, you know, like I got to college and people be like, oh, how did you make it? Like someone asked me like, how did you make it? And I'm like, make what? Like there's no making it. I'm from here. I exist here, and you know, I didn't live in a situation where I felt like this was a trap for me. This was home for me. You're looking at my home as a trap, and that's your problem. But for me, this was a garden for me to grow. So everything for me, like growing up, was even the crazy stuff. It's just like it's all stories. It's all it builds character.
Yeah,
so it's all part of the nostalgia in the end. So I don't know. I just have nothing but good memories. Like, you know, we definitely have like just like any other area issues that have gone on, but I don't know. I at the end of the day, I'm always going to speak positively.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, when I was much younger, I was like, oh, because I was originally born on the Upper East Side and raised in Spanish Harlem. And so, you know, like my family and I, we eventually moved to the Bronx when I was 8. And then from 8 on, it was like I was in the Bronx, and then periodically I go back and forth between like the Bronx and Spanish Harlem. And then one thing that you said, which, you know, because there's so many things I connect with you, is because I'm Ghanian as well. And I remember when I was younger, because my mom lived in Spanish Harlem, my dad lived in the Bronx, and they were together, but they were apart. And so like we would go to his house on Andrews Avenue, and I always thought when we was going to his house, we were going to Africa. because he would always only hang around Ghanaian people. And so like when we were in the Bronx and he was hanging out with Ghanaian people, when I saw anyone else, I'm like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And so like, would you say that was kind of your experience as well in terms of with your family dynamic, in terms of like being Ghanaian and being from the Bronx? Because you said that there's a strong like Ghanaian community here.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, I definitely knew I was not in Ghana. Okay? and honestly, one of the main reasons is because it's always the threat of a Ghanaian parent to send you back there if you act up. So all of us kids were in that prime age of being little rascals and having our parents threaten us, or hearing stories about kids who really took it there and got like suspended or like wouldn't stop, you know, acting up, and then their parents got them on a one-way right back there. And so like, just, you know, it's always a common story. So
oh my God.
I definitely was aware of where I'm at and where I'm not. But once again, very thankful for the fact that like almost everything that I could go to in terms of like my parents congregating with people that didn't involve like some legal stuff. Can I curse on here?
You can curse.
Okay,
you can
cool.
do whatever you want.
Cool. Yeah. But like anything that involved that anything that did not involve that usually involved us being in contact with a Ghanaian. So where we went to shop, African market, Ghanaians right there. Barbershop, Ghanaians right there. Like just specific shops, cash, like cash checking, like a Western Union type thing. If I was going to get shots, my like vaccinations before going to Ghana to visit, we had a Ghanaian doctor for that. Like it was always like finding a Ghanaian person who could, which makes sense. You know what I mean? Coming from my family coming from an immigrant background and just being Ghanaians, you want to find your people who will look out for you, especially in this city, because it can be rough when you're not, locked into community like that. It can be a very loner kind of experience. But no, yeah, like everything around me was involved a Ghanaian person in my face or looking at a Ghanaian person. And so that's why like I feel like when I did end up going, it wasn't the most immediate culture shock, but it was like, yo, everybody's black. The cop, the pharmacist, the guy bringing you milk, whatever, like every single person you can imagine is black. Is black.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was, so I felt like that helped ease it in. But no, I feel like being in the Bronx, I had a great experience interacting with the Ghanian community and church, of course. Church being such a central thing. Like I went to church not too far from here.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wait, so what tribe is your family originally from?
My family is a Khan.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a Khan. As far as I understand, yeah, for the most part. I feel like there's like a dabble of something way back when, but yeah, they are a Khan. Oh, and Asante, yeah.
Oh, you're Ashanti?
Yeah, there's some of that in there.
I didn't know that.
I believe my mom's or my grandmother said that our people moved from that region to where, like, from the Ashanti region to where we are now.
Okay, because I think I've only remember you like represent like a Khan. I never heard.
Yeah, because it's like I said, it's mostly that now. You know, like everyone in my family kind of like identifies with that or is part of that. But yeah, I believe our history is that we moved from the Ashanti region.
Wait, so when did you originally first go to Ghana then?
I went to Ghana when I was...
For the first time.
I went to Ghana like when I was... Not going to drop the age, but I went in 2000... I went 2001 because when I was coming back home was September 11th.
Oh, wow.
I was coming back that day.
That day?
Yeah.
What was that like?
They shut down all the airports, and then, I mean, we were there in the morning and we just started getting calls about what was happening. And then we saw on TV later, and then it was just like, oh, we're here for another week. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember where I was during 9/11, and that was an interesting time. But, skip along to the future. Do you remember how you and I first met?
Listen. It's hazy, but I know it was the party. I know the place. I know the time.
Yep.
I remember the vibes, but it definitely was meeting up at Melissa's function.
How did you guys meet?
How did we meet? I honestly, you know what? It was like my friend knew of her through another friend. I don't know if I should name names.
You can name names.
Yeah, okay, so Ivory knew Jamal, and Jamal... I don't know how they knew each other, but I met Jamal through Ivory, and then kind of like Melissa through all of that congregating.
Because that's what I said. I remember I told her, I said, you met her through Jamal. And then she was like, really? And she couldn't remember.
Or maybe not. You know what? Because
it seems like I don't remember. I have like memories.
Because the thing is, though, there was a birthday when Ivory had her going away for her birthday, Melissa was there.
Okay.
And by then, I feel like I had seen her maybe once before.
Okay.
But like that was the time when I saw her. She came through late and turned to the... she came in late, went to the middle of the room, and turned it into a dance floor immediately.
That's so her.
It was so funny. It was so funny. It was so funny and so good. It was everyone loves that energy when she comes in like that. So yeah. But I remember that being the first moment that I met her, because I was like, I will never forget what she even had on. It was like a 2-piece black look with a white, almost, I want to say mock turtleneck. Or turtleneck type thing. If not, it was like just a shirt, but she had on like a black kind of like simple jacket, black pants, came through more so simple, and then like turned it up. And then after that, we met. But definitely by the time it was at her house party, that's when all the dots aligned for real, and we like tapped in. Yeah,
I mean, I remember you're like, you basically took my virginity.
Please don't put that on record.
Like when I say that, like. You were like, I remember telling Melissa before I even had this interview, I was like, Eddie's the first person who kind of made me felt seen. Yeah, because it was like there was 3 accounts where we first, like when we were meeting.
Okay. First
one was at Melissa's house.
Okay.
When she was living in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
And, that is hazy to me, but I remember we were there, we were at a party. I remember you had the big hair, like the big hair mohawk vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then the second time was when I was doing a shoot with a stylist, and he brought me in to Chris Habana's office at the time in the Lower East Side.
Oh, yeah.
And he was working there.
Yeah.
And then we briefly exchanged at that time where Chris Habana was. Then the third time was when I was like, whoa. We were on the train, And at first, it was like you were blowing my mind. You first told me you were from the Bronx because I didn't think you were from the Bronx.
Okay.
And I was like, whoa. Then you told me that. Then you told me that you were Ghanian, and I was like, oh my fucking god, you were the first Ghanaian gay man that I ever met. Like, not to sound like that way. And so I remember we were on the train, and I could be remembering wrong, but I'm almost certain that like I saw you on the train. You had like the striped white and red American Apparel shirt.
Classic.
And I just remember I was like, oh my god, like I have that shirt too. And it was just like,
yeah.
And then for a while I would run into you on the train, and I was like,
word.
And I was
word.
just like, oh my god. And then from there, I've just always been so infatuated with you. Just like, he's like I think there was I think maybe this is gonna sound very like crazy, but I think there was a time where I went home and I was like, oh my god, I met this guy, he's Ghanaian and he's gay, and it was just kind of because I don't remember till this day I still don't meet in New York many Ghanaian gay people.
Yeah.
And so there's been more that I've met, and like right now in New York City, I know 2 other Ghanaian gay people, where I know tons of Nigerian gay people.
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you think about what I just shared?
I mean, it sounds like I'm like, yeah, I connect with everything you're talking about. And I think like I resonate with the excitement of like running into someone, and it's like, and when people say like hearing your stories or seeing yourself is important, like when people kind of minimize the impact of seeing someone that looks like you on a mannequin, on a billboard, some random person you don't know who just happens to look like you. You don't know what that means to some people when you don't live it. Like I grew up not meeting anyone that shared my experience. I actually felt like in every space, in being a space with like young folks from New York, as an American, being a Ghanaian, a black person, like a young boy, a teenage boy, whatever, like I just never saw my story, and I never saw other folks that I could connect with. So it was always weird because I feel like I spent my whole kind of like childhood dancing on eggshells, because I always was like, also I think part of like the whole idea of being like a gold, not that I was like the golden star, but like being like, an obedient, presentable child and not embarrassing the hell out of your parents. So that's part of it, and keeping up that sort of image and whatever code. But then also it's just like I don't, there's no one to connect this story to me. So like what I'm going through, I don't know what I'm going through. And anyone that I could even begin to share an inkling of what I'm going through is making it feel like I shouldn't share it somehow. Or not, but the sensation that I get is I should not share this. Or this is not a place for me to share this. And I'm like, okay, well, there's nowhere to share this. And there's no one else that's living the life in a way where we can talk about everything. Like I see my homegirls, and the thing is like, I don't know if I'm going to go too deep into it, but like, like I grew up going to like churches out here too. And the church, for a lot of cultures, not just Ghanaian or African, will pull you in with your people for sure.
Right.
That's one of the first places you want to go when you want to connect with people. And from there, it becomes a part of your lifestyle. Some of these people you go to church with, you go to parties with, you go out to, dinner, to movies, to just regular lifestyle things. And it just was like, I don't feel like I fit in with any of these lifestyles. And also people make me feel weird, and I don't know why. People won't stop leaving me alone, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like I just don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Or maybe it's just like they see you as like a light. Like,
I don't know if that was a light they wanted to turn on. Because the thing is, it wasn't people that encouraged me or made me, once again, no one made me feel comfortable, even if they didn't understand. Because I can see someone who I'm like, I don't know what you got going on, but it's you, and you live it to the fullest, and you don't settle, and I can connect with that and like celebrate you and hold space for you there. People were deliberately like, there was no space to hold, one, and two, like as a child, like adults were deliberately like Xing out those spaces and telling me there was no space, and telling me that it was it's wrong to feel like you should have that space. So it's like I spent most of that Bronx upbringing kind of like not all the way confident, because anything that you do, they're like, oh, what's that? You act like a girl, you talk like a girl, you sound and I'm just like, girl, I'm just living. I don't know what to tell you. I just woke up. I just got here.
Yeah.
And so getting back to it, like not seeing other folks there, I always just felt like I'm not fully playing the game. Like I'm one of the kids to play tag, but I'm not really playing with everybody else because like everybody's got all their things and like the whole team around is supporting them to play. And I just felt like I was always cast out or made to feel like I don't play right. So there was an instance when I did finally spot someone that I was like, oh, that's a queen right there. And as a Ghanaian person in the Ghanaian space, and they were embraced as well by their people, I was just like, it's weird because like I did not and I do not connect with that person as a person. Like I don't think that person and I would be friends just off personality because because we're both Black people in a room or Ghanaian people in a room who feel have our purpose. Like that does not mean that we're gonna hit it off. But yeah, it was enough. It was enough. It was a taste of something that I had never gotten before. And even going to Ghana, mind you, because I would go to Ghana as a kid. And that's even more so. Like, you're not seeing that. And any of the feelings, like, you're not, it kind of reinforces the fact that, like, yeah, what you want ain't got nothing to do with anything else. Like, no one around you that you consider close will connect to you. And that's the feeling that I got until I saw that one person. And I was like, literally you exist.
Yeah.
So it means, I don't know what it means, but you exist. So like I can keep going. I can keep going. I'm more curious. I want to explore more. I want to know more. It just sparked the curiosity more so. And then also reinstilled a sense of comfort. Because once again, you're there.
Yeah.
It can't just be the two of us. And even if it is just the two of us, I see you and you're there. And that's all. I see it. It exists, so then it's possible.
Even that sort of representation matters.
It meant a lot to see that boy turning it up and queening out at the function and being around his girlies and them like, giving him life for it and not making him feel away. Him literally sauntering and swaying as he pleases. There was power in that. Because that same swishing and swinging was the same shit that I was doing like unintentionally without thinking. It was just the way I move and people made me stop and fixate on every movement, the way I breathe, because of that. And to see him just live it and no one's making him feel away and none of the aunties are looking, but what? He's not dead. No one's jumping him outside the function. Like he can be as boisterous as he wants. He can be as boisterous as he wants and no one gives him trouble. So I'm not there yet as a kid, as like 11 years old or 13 years old. I'm not there yet, but there's a possibility if I ever want to get there or if I ever get there, there's a way. And I knew that just by seeing him.
I mean, when, like I said, when I first met you, like when that final meeting happened and that alluring of you just came into fruition, I was just like, first of all, even thinking about it now, I didn't even think that was something that was important to me until it happened, because it was just like meeting you and just like I think I might have been like going to college or maybe going to high school. I can't remember what it was. I just was always, it was like a routine. I was maybe going to work and it was just like, at one point we both worked at American Apparel. Like it was just like, there was so much in common. And then, it made me, because I didn't grow up with like the tools of like, or traditions of being Ghanaian because my mom's American, so anytime I meet other Ghanaian people, I get really excited. And then to meet someone like you, I was like, oh my God, like just so enamored. But, it also encouraged me to want to explore, about like queer culture in Ghana. And right now it's at a rough place. What do you think about what's going on in Ghana right now?
From my perspective, as someone who's not living there and not having to deal with these experiences on the day to day, I try to be very cognizant about that while we sit. I mean, yeah, Ghana is home, but I'm not at that home all day. So there's someone else has to pick up the slack, or not pick up the slack, but have to endure whatever comes with all those things.
Right.
That said, I feel like it's very backwards. I think that's pretty obvious. I know that it's very backwards, and it's very It's very tone deaf. I think it's deliberately tone deaf to like where we are as a people, like regardless of, you know, your background and where you are, but like it just completely, I feel like it's manufacturing these lies about how we live our life by passing that law. Like, you know what I mean? And of course, like, and it also, I think it just it calls out even more the silencing, the lack of representation, the lack of strength for the community out there, even though members are definitely present. You know, there are queer people out there living their queer lives, and some of them living it quite, you know, freely
We got
in
to meet some of
their
them.
in their areas where they are. But like, yeah, I think that that kind of I think at the end of the day, what I really think is that homophobia is something that like folks take on like a character trait, and also kind of end up romanticizing as like a code of law or like a identity, literally an identity. And so I feel like certain countries, like some of the countries like Ghana, have kind of inherited those things as a part of like who they are, because they say like, you know, that's not a Ghanaian thing.
Yeah.
You know, people say that's not
It's
something that our people
westernized.
do. It's something, if you picked it up and you feel that in your soul, you learned it from someone else.
Yeah.
You did not get that from here. And it's like, I mean, that's a very misguided understanding of how it works. But also, I think it serves as a way to unify the people and hide the fact that some folks that are representing the people aren't doing things in the best interest of the people. But if you can unify over the fact that homophobia has been a rhetoric that's always been claimed to be what our people stand by, you can get people to rally around the fact that even though money's disappearing and resources are kind of going left and right, and other things aren't being managed the way that they should be for the sake of the people, taking care of the roads, other things that people have been complaining about, schooling, health, women's rights, other things that people have been complaining about for decades and is picking up steam now. The one thing you can get people to relax on is like, well, at least they're making sure those gays don't do all that extra shit that they do over there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hungry, and you know, if we go to the hospital, we might die in there as opposed to sitting in here and whatever. But at least they don't fuck with that gay shit. At least they get that. We, as a people, that is our thing, and they stood by it. And that's how I hear it spoken about, to be honest. Whenever they get to that point, it's like, that's not what we do. And I'm like, you're gonna cling to that so much, you're gonna it ignores all of the other things.
Yeah.
Because it's been a very aggressive push. It's been at the forefront of the news. You know what I mean? And I feel like people take advantage of the fact that there's pandemonium and propaganda around that, because then there's not enough time to talk on the news about all the other things. Like, where's all this money that's been disappearing? What's with the bad actors who are in charge and supposed to be speaking for the people? Like, you speak for the people on that for sure, because it's easy. But everything else where you have to actually do something actionable to take care of those people in their lives, aside from keeping them away from queer people, however that works, you don't want to actually show and prove on there. So I think that they and other places, Ghana's not immune to it, exclusive. I think a lot of places harp on queer phobia as a way to keep the people from trying to tear the heads off of the rich and powerful.
You know, because I've traveled through Africa in recent years, and one thing that I feel that is a thing is kind of like a don't ask, don't tell. Because for me, like when I was in Ghana, I feel like I pretty much exude feminine energy, like not like in the sense of like wearing dresses or anything like that. It's just part of like my character.
Exactly.
And so the thing is like I don't feel like anyone made me feel, maybe because I'm American, but no one made me feel different, you know, for like wearing a little bit of a short on a hot day or whatever, exuding my feminine energy. But I feel like it just comes to the point of like, if we're talking about like, oh, we gay, like then that's when it becomes a problem. Like men will flirt with men out there too, like and like hold hands and hug and all this other stuff. But once the word gay comes out, everybody's up in arms.
Yeah.
You know? So
But that's because at the end of the day, male to male or man to man connections there's so many other ways to experience them except besides sexually.
Right.
There's so many ways to experience intimate connection with another man platonically, without it having to implicate the fact that I want to go to bed with you and engage in sexual. That's the thing. I'm like, people take it so far.
Yeah.
How do you get like me in short shirts and you take it to me wanting to like take a man to bed and do all these crazy acts? That's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to put on some shorts.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot to see me as a human being who you will never see in the bedroom. You're lost. Who you will never see in the bedroom. And the first thing you think about when you see me is what I do when I'm in the bedroom. The fact that people look at children and express things where it's like, oh, you're going to be doing this and doing that, when they're not even in a place to like girls, like guys, or understand what any of that means. Yeah. And you I find that quite disgusting, to be honest, and in a way perverted, because that's where your head is at. You know what I mean? I forgot what the question is, but yeah, no, I feel like there's definitely a freedom, a bit of a freedom of expression there, but yeah, it's still one thing I do want to say is that and I expressed it to you before when I talked about the last time that I went, which was the first time that I went by myself as an adult, and all the apprehension and all the fear that my mom like poured into me, telling her that I was going, and she was just like, one of the very first things was she was just like, like some guys got like assaulted or like abused or like killed, I think, even over there. And I was just like, well, how about we like celebrate the fact that I'm going back, girl? And like, why does that have to be the first thing? Although as a mother, I understand her concerns for me, and that's where she was speaking from. But for me, who was very excited about the journey, it tore me to bits. It tore my spirit down. And so it was so nice to be on the flip side and make the trip, regardless of whoever was telling me that I maybe shouldn't do it, or maybe that's not a good idea, and was literally embraced by everybody and found space and found community and found under individuals who understand. So yeah, like it's still, I do still think that it's a place for, people like us, as much as I understand that, the laws and things being passed are making people feel very, apprehensive about going there, not without reason. But in my, seeing with my two eyes, I felt safe. I felt comfortable. And I felt safe to be myself, specifically, and not put on any airs, not have to act up for family or put on a role if I could. Child, I don't know how much I can mask up this sissy, but you know what I mean? But like, either way, it's just, there was no pressure or invitation to play those roles. It was just like, I gave it up just like this without thinking. And that was the sweetest kind of like experience, just to not think and just be, and have people see me for me and be like, it is what it is. Like it, and not it is what it is. It's great. I accept it and I love it. And let's do what we got to do. So it was an amazing experience.
I mean, I see what's going on over there. I've made a lot of friends, and so I don't want to like speak too much and like on what's going on out of the safety of those people. Yeah. But like my heart goes out to the people that are out there, and like any way of being of service, like I always am doing my best to do that, either if it's like working with artists or, lending resources, whatever. But, we're sitting up here with the Black African Gold hardcore shirts, which I'm so honored to be decked out in a young Fleur piece.
Yes.
I am curious to know, like, what started, like, your interest in the arts?
Okay. My interest in the arts.
Because you're like you are so multifaceted and nuanced in terms of, you go to the logistical side of like marketing communications, and then you also do styling, and then you do creative directing, and, you write, you do a lot of different things that communicate strong stories, especially strong Black stories. So I'm interested in like what, like, jump started that for you. Do you remember like when you were first interested in the arts?
I don't know about when I was first interested, but I can definitely tell the pivotal moment that changed the things. And I'm honestly too excited to not finally, but to talk about, the fact that there was a center here in the Bronx that I went to around middle school that Ivory actually got me into, the Mind Builders thing that we used to do. And over there, they had a program director. Oh, so Mind Builders up in the Bronx. Shout out to Mind Builders, okay? They're up in the Bronx, uptown near Gun Hill. And it was a space that had like so many different programs. They still are there. You can learn music, you can learn dance, martial arts, so many different programs. And they really work hard to feed the community and give them a way out and opportunities to access other things, especially when it comes to the creative arts. Shout out to Madaha Kinsey Lamb, who founded the space. She's amazing.
That's a lovely name she got.
Yes, sure. Don't play with her. Don't play with Miss Madaha. But they got a program director in for this one of the programs that they had for the youth there, which was the Dr. Beverly J. Robinson Community Folk Culture Program.
Oh wow! I love that you remember that.
Oh, child, I had to say it every couple months or every other week at an interview because we would lead interviews. So what it was Dr. Beverly J. Robinson was a folk culture researcher. And so what that means is basically all the different parts of our culture that we take part in, from food to rituals and celebrations, dress, of course, to even just like slang, all the different ways that we express and take in culture. We studied that. So if your grandmother was some Dominican lady in the Bronx who threw down with some rice and beans, we were interviewing her. If your grandfather was a griot who told stories from thousands of years past or hundreds of years past, we brought them in. If you were someone from the Xhosa tribe in South Africa, we would bring them in, and they were dancers. We would bring them in, and then in the end, we would kind of gather different people and pull them together and find like commonalities in what they're talking about, and basically create a theme that would become a show, a presentation.
Wow.
And we would present all of these people that we interviewed throughout our term to students, to other students around the city in like kind of like a public program, like public arts programs. So kids would take trips to a venue like the National Black Theater in Harlem, and I would stand up there with other kids, literally 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, presenting to other kids that were 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Wow.
And, Jade, Miss Jade Banks, who is my mentor, my supervisor formerly, my second mother, and the reason I'm here in this creative space. She always championed just do you do what you do is her motto, her slogan, and one that all of her kids have picked up, and she gladly shares and lets us share with the world. Do you and do what you do, because I am I and you are you. Dreams die by compromise, won't live my life through another's eyes. And she would say that shit all the time. And this is me hearing it at like 11.
Wow.
And so she really stressed the fact of like living a life on your terms. She understood our background and the pressure that our parents and the world put around us, the narratives that the world would tell about us and what we were capable of doing. And she really encouraged us to break out of it and write our own at 11, 12, 13. We were writing down like, here's what my interests are, and here are the jobs I want. Draw a line to your interest and the job that connects to it. And she'd be like, well, maybe you want to think about these 2 or 3. And maybe this one that has no lines connecting, maybe, not saying to drop it, but maybe that's not the one. Or maybe you got to rethink or reconsider how that works. And she would just get us to think about whatever you said you love to do or you want to do, she would put you there. You said you sing, we in a barbershop, pull up, and not like that, but like there were scenarios where it'd be like, oh, you're a model? Like that was a space where they'd be like, oh, you're a model? Walk.
Wow.
Oh, you're sing for me. And if you said like, oh, I don't know, it's like, no, you're a singer. Sing.
Wow.
You sing, right? Sing. We're all in a room. No one is better than any other. We're all young people figuring out what we want to dream up and become at that point. So it was like, do what you say you're about. Do you and do what you do for real. And so she really held us to like whatever we said that we enjoyed. Like she honored it as young adults, as adults, honestly. She treated us like adults in that way, where it's like, that's what you want for your life, then that's what you should get. And here's how I can help you. And here's how you can help yourself. And here's when you're not helping yourself. And here's where you are doing what you need to do to get where you need to go. And that whole couple years that I was there, I was working with them from 7th grade into like college years. To the point where I was kind of like training their new interns and things and program assistants that were joining in. So yeah, that was a place where ultimately Jade was the one who had me like, you love fashion. You don't want to work in medicine. You could, and there's nothing wrong if you love that, but that's not where your heart is.
Because every Ghanian is a lawyer or a doctor.
Everybody wants you an engineer or something. And I genuinely love when folks are like, my parents like are pushing me to do this, and I actually love it. I'd be like, yeah, it's like you're aligned, but when you're not, it sucks, you know? And people make you feel like, well, you just have bad judgment because this is what rules. This is what rules the world, and this is how people get paid. And Miss Jade was like, I get paid doing what I want. She's a lady with a bald head and dreadlocks tightly wrapped in a bun. That's how we met her. And we were crying on the floor in tears when we first saw this lady. Now it's like when I would see it, it's like seeing her fingernail. Like that's her look. She lives her life as herself out loud. She literally did what she said. She's not one of those adults that was like, do this and like went another way. She embodied it, took on the suffering, took on the joy, the celebration, the laughing, the bigging her up, and showed us like, this is what it looks like to live on my own terms. And I'm doing it and I can still do it. And from there, I was like, oh yeah, I'm never going back.
Wow.
I'm never going back. And I never went back.
I love that.
Before we continue with our conversation, here's a clip from the film Peace.
You what? Always, into the day I die.
What is that like to be a part of a brand so well recognized in the industry?
It's definitely an honor, especially because this is a company, and this is what kept me working there, that I can see my hand. Like I feel like I can see the effort that I contribute to there very visibly, and all of us can kind of be like, I did that, and we all came together to make it happen. But it's definitely something that was a steady growth. I mean, when I came in, Chris already is and was a brand, you know what I mean, a full-fledged brand, doing his thing, had his followers and all of that, and definitely had like peers who respected him. Like I think around that time, like he was doing like a lot of like, not, that wasn't like the only thing he did, but I remember specifically that like Drag Race, for example, a lot of those girls on there, a lot of the people on there had worn his stuff or had pieces designed by him before. I think he had won an award from Logo and things like that, like the Logo channel. And so coming into that, it was just interesting to see how I was able to kind of help push things along. Like he was lit by himself for sure, but it was great to kind of be a vehicle to kind of like really bring it all together, because it's only so much that one person can do in one time and in his role. So seeing the requests build up, seeing us steadily like get a request from someone and him being like, oh, that's my idol. I've dreamt of working with that stylist. Oh, I've dreamt of working with this person, and me being like, oh, I've dreamt of being able to be, working around something for this person, to now where it's like, this is like a normal part of the business. You know what I mean? Like before, like, like certain things would hit like a blip where it'd be like, oh, that's cool. And now it's like every day, it's like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. And it's such an amazing feeling because we really all fought for that. We all worked very hard. There was no money for this to be a paid thing. You know what I mean? There was no budget for us to force money into things. It was through everybody's talent and diligent effort and want to see things grow and want for us to grow for ourselves. So, I think what I enjoy and I'm thankful for is that I was able to bring the context, being a younger 20-something or not even 20-something at the time when I first started working with him. I was underage. I was like under 21. And being able to be like, oh, he's like, oh, this artist is whoever, or this musician is whoever. Do you know who this is? And I'm like, oh, no, that you have to put them. You have to dress them. Or like, this person is so your vibe. Or this person gets your love of just freedom and challenging the status quo. When people see this, when they see it, they'll recognize. And being able to employ that love of recognition in my job on a daily basis and building connections. All I do all day is build connections and build recognition and build understanding of what we do and carve telling stories. Journalism and marketing all day. Wow. And so I get to do that. And I'm very thankful for it. I forgot what the question was.
No, you're good. You answered the question. I mean, like, what would you say is like some of those moments where you were like, oh my God, we get to do that?
So many. But some of the ones, let me think, like the early ones. I mean, honestly, I remember working with Patty Wilson was great. Because Patty's like a legend, you know what I mean? And once again, it's like all the people that like I curate and all the topics that I curate and research and talk about in my spare time, I'm working with the people who made those archives, who made those references. And so that was exciting enough. whether it was my first time working for Chris or like even now, 10, 11 years in the game with him, was amazing because not just the talent, but because of like what that talent and that platform represents and what they're capable of putting out and how it affects culture and the fact that like I was able to go and see it in person and to see like, because we created a few different things, but one thing we created was this robot look of just wires on a latex skin suit. So it looked like it was just her body covered in glowing wires and metal robot bits.
What was the process of that like? Because from my understanding, like sometimes like celebrities might have like a body mold or something like that. Like
I don't know if I can speak on that.
Okay.
We've signed NDAs.
Okay.
I don't even, now that I think about it, I think I can only stop with just me talking about going there.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they don't play.
Yeah.
But in terms of the, what do you mean? I mean, what can I answer? I would rather not speak on that.
Yeah.
Just to avoid overstepping a boundary I didn't know was a boundary. But I mean, what was the question? Because I'll see what I can answer because I do want to answer.
How was the process of like making stuff for her? Like,
as far as what the process is like, I mean, I think it's a very I think it's a moment where you're like, once again, this is like one of the greatest talents, you know what I mean, of our time, like creating something and putting something together, and they want you to be involved. So I think that it definitely was a moment to celebrate, of course, because you're like, oh, you've been seen, and you're going to be spotlighted. And two, it's also encouragement because it's like, hey, someone is viewing you to be able to deliver the level of execution to go on a world tour, on a headlining world tour that all of the world will be paying attention to, and they are fine and they feel safe in your hands with you being one of the things that is part of this ongoing image. And then also
historically,
and so there's the pressure where it's like there shouldn't be like you got to bring it. You've got to bring it. There's no other. There's no half ass in it. Like, you're giving you. This is you in essence. This is recognition. People are going to recognize this as your work, on a global stage. Wow. So you got to bring it. I have nothing to do with production. I'm not putting a finger to anything. I'm clacking the keys and making sure that everything is met, and we're keeping the lines of communication, the logistical, so that what people are asking for and what we're promising for is what is being delivered in the end. So just being a part of that, it just like reminded me to be on my P's and Q's, just like with any other job, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't necessarily give more to that than any other, but like it reminded me to just, once again, the things, the traits, the qualities, the things that I think I bring to the table the best, double down on that. Really bring it. Really like show and prove and be ironclad on that. So it was just a great opportunity to kind of just be a part and just feel the energy of like folks that are all working to the best of their ability and some of the best in the game, and they considered us for it. So that was amazing. And just seeing, once again, like the robot suit, because it's like across the screen, like she's literally laid out like head to toe across, and then like spreads out. And so it was just like, that was a pinnacle for me to see our work. I've never seen our work in that way. So that was one of the more recent, but all the talents that we work with, and even the people like in the art field and outside of music, because we do a lot of music, but people in film, and being asked to be a part of films, to contribute things to films is amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I've to see you guys progression as a team, and like from where you like I first met you with joining Chris Habana to like where you guys are now is just so beautiful. I mean, I owe me some Chris Habana earrings.
As you should. I
actually wore them in my film. I'm not sure if you remember that.
Yes. Yeah. Only baddies wear Chris Habana.
I mean,
Period.
But I am curious because of the work and everything. Like, how does your work relationship, the dynamic of that, work out with you and Chris Habana, in terms of, because I feel like when creators are coming together to make things happen, like he's a creative, you're the logistics, you are like his support in a way.
Yeah.
Like, what is that dynamic like?
I would say that Chris is unique in terms of how he maintains his workplace and the workplace culture. And that is one thing that has kept me, once again, working there for so long, because he's definitely got a freer spirit compared to what I've seen from other places where it's kind of like that whole standard Devil Wears Prada-ish kind of you gotta be careful. Do you know who that is? It's like, no, I don't. And suddenly you've made $1 billion mistake. There's not as much of the pressure there. For sure, we take our work very seriously. There's no joking about that. However, the process, the way we treat each other, the way we talk to each other, the way we encourage each other and collaborate with each other, there's just nothing but love. There's really nothing but love, friendliness, understanding, trying to understand each other. There's no malice, none of the weird workplace stuff where you're like, oh, am I cool with this person or not? I always say leadership, this one place I used to work said smile start at the top.
Absolutely.
So when people are saying put a smile on your face, well, smile start at the top. So if you as the boss are not smiling to me with your delivery, why do you think I'm going to give a smiley disposition when other people see me? But one thing people always say when someone from our team goes anywhere to do anything, just to even drop off a glass of water, they're like, she was so sweet. She was so lovely. And so I love that person. It's so nice. Whenever we're backstage, we always end up finding people who have nothing to do with what we're doing coming and standing next to us because they're like, it feels calm here. I hear that every season. They're like, it feels relaxed here. And it's because all we want to do is work. One thing about Chris, that defines the space, we're about getting work done. We're about doing it as relaxed as possible and trying to, not as relaxed, but as a carefree, stress-free environment as possible, and trying to understand each other. So all of those things are always happening. We're always trying to understand each other and always trying to push to get things done. That's it. So it's just so, I don't even know it's so easy. You know what I mean? It's so easy to talk to him about things. It's so easy to discuss things. I never feel like there's never we're about to do this presentation and things are about to. It's none of that. He takes away all of that energy because also it's hard to perform for some folks. Some people, they live off of that kind of feeling like there's something on your back, and other people, it crushes them and paralyzes them, and then they don't want to work. And he's just so let's work with everybody's style. Everyone is different. I'm not just a teacher, I am a student. He learns so much from everyone around him. He's not afraid to say it. He has so much humility and he's so humble. And it's something that I do not see as much or have not experienced as much in other circles and working with other companies. And so that's what keeps me with him. He just wants to do really great work, pay his people, pay himself. Not anything dramatic, you know what I mean? He's not living a super duper luxe lifestyle. He does what he can. He does what he can to keep things going. And that mantra and that energy in the way he lives life is just inspiring to me. He shows me you don't have to be a bitch to work in fashion. That's what I always say. Chris taught me, you don't have to be a bitch. All these folks that do it, sure, it works for them, but it's not the only way. And if you're not that kind of person and that kind of commandeering things doesn't come to you, you also don't have to do that to be well respected, get top paying gigs, get top paying opportunities, and get placed where you want to be and get noticed. So,
I mean, because I've met Chris before, the fact that he's an Asian man doing his thing, I 100 million points to that. And it's just the idea of being in the PR, marketing and digital world of fashion. I thought I was gonna be that person, and then after working it, I did not have the experience that you were having. So to see that you guys have that dynamic of it being because I've spoken to him, you would invite me to the office and just oh, meet me at the office. I'm like, what? And he's just always been so chill. And so I have a few more questions before I let you go.
Ask.
Because one thing about you is that not only have I've learned so much from you. I've learned I brought Kenny Javon on this show, and
shout out to Kenny Javon.
And I brought him on because you told me about Dick Appointment. I learned how to send emails to people because of you, because you told me about the special tools to like
take away all the secrets.
I've learned so much. I've learned about like, you know, fashion and like how to like stylize my stuff. Like Peace was stylized the way I was stylized because like you encouraged me to do that. Like in terms of like building these relationships with designers, and
I love that, and it's such a good part, and it stylizes the word. Like I feel that stylizes the word when I see that production from you in particular. So I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like literally, like I think about you all the time. Like, oh my god, like, you know, like Eddie's gonna respond back to my message.
Stop. But you know it's mutual because I obsess over you too.
But so I want to know, like, where do you feel the direction of fashion is right now? Because I feel like you always have like these predictions and ideas, and I also. But before we even get into that, because I didn't know, where does Young Fleur come from? Before we even get into anything else, because I didn't ask that question. I'm curious.
Okay. Young Fleur is really like... Okay, so my Instagram before that was
now I'm curious.
Your boy had eras, but it's really not that deep. I'm drumming it up for nothing, I promise you. But like, you know, it's just... The long story short is it was just a name to tap into a certain feeling. My Instagram before was Lux Luther, and because I feel like I've always enjoyed a sense of like luxury for sure, and this like in a caricature sense, like the like exaggerated cartoonish examples of luxury, like a gold fountain or something like that. And I like it for the kind of like the ostentatiousness of it in theory.
Kind of like that Powerpuff Girls character who's the devil.
Yes. Oh, I thought you were gonna point out somebody else. But
Mojo Jojo.
But actually I feel like him...
Wait, what character are you gonna point out?
I thought you were gonna bring up Princess Morbucks, who was a little girl who went to sleep with the cash, and she was like, Daddy!
Yeah.
Definitely fuck with her. But him definitely is more the vibe, the style. And she's more so the lifestyle. I don't know what the fuck him was living in. It was nothing but a motherfucking couch and darkness, girl. So either way. No, so I've always just been into this idea of, you know, I was into fashion and stuff. So that's where the luxury thing came in. And like seeing these glossy campaigns, like I was just enamored, of course. And then feeling like, but I'm not that. Like I don't necessarily belong to a lifestyle that necessarily buys into luxury things on the daily, like actually spends the money on it. And also just this idea of like, I always like feeling like a twist to something. And like, even with my work and where I'm at, all we do is twist things. So it's cool. But just like having this idea of it with a twist that feels like I'm the twist, you know? So Lux Luther was like a name that just came up. I think I was thinking about like Luther, Lux Luthor was a play on Lex Luthor from Batman. And he was kind of like in the Batman show, in the movie, he was kind of like this like stoic kind of like, he's just rich and evil and like stoic, and you know, and he just gave power, and I love that. So I was like, Lex Luthor, but like my version, so Lux Luthor. And then I think after that, or before that, I think after was Lucicrino. And Lucicrino is, of course, you know, Lil' Kim. On the mission for the Lucicrino. I used to wear Moschino, but other bitch got it. Now I rock colorful mix because god. And I was obsessed with Lil' Kim. And Lil' Kim, you'll hear me play her music on my stories all the time. She's once again a pinnacle of a certain experience with luxury. And I love that, and I connected with that. And the whole East Coast, like, you know, flashy, ostentatious depiction of hip hop. I was like, I love that that's our thing, that I can claim that as like, that's what New York is known for. We get money, boys. Like we, you know, fur coats and everything, like that aesthetic. I love that. Like I could say that belongs to where I'm from. So either way, Lucicrino was the next one. And then eventually I was like, Lucicrino, like, I don't know. Like when people would say it to me, I was just like, it's annoying. And also like, it also sounds like, I don't know. Either way, I was kind of over the sound. So Young Fleur just came while I was like experimenting with things on my own Instagram, and I felt like no one was watching me, you know, and I just would share things and like people would resonate where they would. And then Young Fleur became for me like a persona, because like I was like, not that those other two weren't, but that was the first persona that I really took on, and I was like, this feels and sounds like me. Yeah. Because the idea was like young, I feel like it was trendy. Like there's a young anything on Instagram right now. So or on social media in general. So young this, young that, young this, young that. So I was like, all right, I like the like rapper edge feel of it, like young whatever, like, you know what I mean? But I like the idea of like young, and then honestly anything after that, it could just totally throw the meaning off and become something way different from its original context. So Fleur came in because one, I love flowers, and two, Fleur is so like, you're a rapper and your name is Young Flower. You know what I mean? Some people would dead be like, oh, Young Flower, Young Flower. Like, I'm just like, that's corny as hell. But it's like, what's a guy rapper called Young Fleur? Like, you ain't no hard rapper for real. But like, that's the point. Like, I'm doing my own weird shit in my own corner. And that's kind of the MO of everything I do in life. I'm in my own corner just doing some shit. Like, you know? So Young Fleur was like, Young is like the harder kind of like edge, but Fleur is like, wait, what? Because it's really soft and really gentle and really proudly that. Like, Fleur is such the idea of Fleur just gives, you know, soft and gentle and femininity, and just like, it is what it is, and it can't shake that. It can't change that about itself. But then the young part is like the rapper part that's like, oh, like you were young, whatever, Young Fleur, like, oh, you're like young softy kind of. But I'm like, that's me. Like, it's the hard and the soft. It's like the living, you know, Bronx hood, whatever. And then Fleur, this escape to somewhere softer and idyllic and more paradise-like and whatever, like combining all those things together. So Young Fleur kind of just stands for that.
I love that. And, you know, it's, you know, seeing your like growth with Young Fleur, like I mentioned this to you before, like, you know, when you go on your lives, like me and my mom, when I visit her, we would watch you on live, and I'm like, this guy is just like so cool.
I'm so appreciative.
Yeah, of course.
I love that your mom joined in. Yeah. Nah, that one night was fun. When you told me, like, you even sharing her comments, like, was giving me life. Like, I love when people do that. Like, my aunt said, my cousin said this and that, and she, like, they're watching too, and they say, I love when people chime in, because that's all I'm trying to do. I really just want to talk with people. I really want to talk with people about things that people aren't talking about, or just like explore. It's not even about talking about things people aren't talking about, but like, I want to say it my way. Just like Young Fleur, like, if I'm gonna be like a rap persona, it's gonna be my way. Like, imagining that if I'm gonna talk about fashion, I'm gonna talk about it my way. Yeah. And so what that means, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, and when I see you talk, I don't feel like anything feels performative. Like, I feel like when you talk, like, it sounds like someone who's from the Bronx. It sounds like someone who knows about fashion. It sounds so authentic in who you are. And so when I see you, like, the way, like, you know, we're talking about like Cannes Film Festival, we're talking about the Met Gala, or, you know, different fashion shows that happen, like Paris Fashion Week or New York Fashion Week. Like, you're such a joy to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to connect the whole point, not the whole, but the central point of Young Fleur live, my live shows, and what I'm doing is, enough for nothing, working in fashion, and in that experience, like, I didn't really feel like I fit in with a lot of people a lot of the time, even if they look like me, even if they were Black and African and gay. And working in fashion, that didn't necessarily, or Black and gay, that didn't necessarily mean that I had a friend.
Why do you think people are on that?
Oh,
like,
babe, I can't even begin to.
Because I feel like sometimes, especially like in New York, there's this like, I'm too cool for school.
We're all celebrities.
Yeah, and like, I don't, you know, like, New Yorkers are too hard to impress.
I mean, we see a lot of shit.
That's true.
So you're gonna have to come harder. We have people break dancing and doing like death-defying moves on a D train on a random Tuesday at 7 p.m. And you know what people do? Sit on their phone. So yeah, you're gonna have to come hard, because the girls are giving you America's Got Talent on the 4 train, okay? And you are Simon Cowell to the bullshit, like giving them nothing. And I remember one person was even, every so often people will complain like, oh, how y'all see that? And it's like, oh, we see it every day. The competition is steep. Okay? So like, yeah, I feel like I don't know what it is. Like, I think all I kind of hypothesize is that it's about maybe trying to carve a name for yourself. Because once again, like, we do know the stories of people who have had the worst attitudes, but they're legendary because of it. And I feel like some folks be trying to chase that, and I'm just like, okay, And not for nothing, there are some people who I'm seeing it work. So if that's how you want to do it, and if you got the pull like that, that's your neck of the woods, and that's the side of the universe you exist in. And then other people, I feel like they were so used to not getting welcomed in when they came in that they do this like, this is how it is, this hard. You think you get an easy break just because you came in? It wasn't no crystal stair for me. And I'm like, well, girl, how do you help the situation by, making the stairs just as pissy? Like, maybe the experience will be better for our kinds of folks later on because we've cultivated a space for them to feel like, there's people you can reach out to and talk to and connect with, and like things don't get weird when you start asking, just questions about the industry, because I'm gonna go to somebody that looks like me and has been in it with me before anybody else, and you're trying to give the same old runaround like everybody else, and some people that also enjoy being the only Black person in the room. Ugh. Don't forget that's the thing. As much as people talk on like social media about like, like, oh, there's only one Black person in the room, there are some people that actually love that. They don't want another Black person in the room, because when that person gets in the room, they feel like it's competition and they start doing weird erratic shit just because you're there, and don't see you as a place to like build with or like create an immovable foundation. Hopefully they see you as someone that's trying to take their spot. And I feel like I've had conversations where like people kind of take it that way, and I'm like, babe, we're all pooling information, like, you know what I mean? Like, I literally don't want your job.
No, you've literally been a resource for me over the years.
I try to be. And so what I was just saying is like, young Fleur, when I talk to people, when we go to places, like, it's very like, there's a certain way people talk about fashion. And definitely if you're someone who's not in it and you're looking at people like me and you and like other people who are in creative industries who kind of do things like this, it can feel a bit intimidating. It can be intimidating. And I see that it's intimidating for folks. And me being in the industry in the past has been intimidating. And so all I want to do is just create a space where you don't have to deal with any of that.
I'm thankful for people like you.
That's simple as that. Simple as that. For me, I say whether your interaction with fashion is you work in the industry, you work with a stylist, you're traveling to all the Fashion Week shows every season, come through and let's talk. If your only experience with fashion is watching the Victoria's Secret fashion show with your mother, like I used to do growing up every December, or what is it, October, November?
That was December.
Literally would be cuddled up with my mother. And when I tell you that was the one fashion show, I wasn't watching the other seasons of whatever, what the girls were really doing. I was watching that. And the way they put it together, the theme, the everything, and me and her talking about the fits. And if that's your only experience, or maybe looking at the Grammys real quick, or whatever, and then you call it a day, come through. Don't feel like you can't speak here, because from my experience in the research that I did in Mind Builders and with the Smithsonian, we all have a tie to these things that makes us an expert, not just a participant or someone who enjoys it, but you are an expert in fashion in ways that I'm not. You can tell me certain things and certain connections that I will never be able to, or just because I don't have the experience. I didn't grow up like you. So sometimes I'll talk about, a Schiaparelli look, and somebody will be like, oh, where I'm from, we always, we treasure like ear adornments as a thing, and this is what it means over there. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, thanks for sharing that. And then someone else is like, oh, they made that material with such and such and such and such, and it's this specific French technique that they. Okay, thanks for sharing. And I'm like, oh, did you see Old Girl in that cartoon from way back when? Don't that look the same? And they're like, yeah, that movie. So I'm just like, the pop cultural references, all of these things. Fashion is not this. It's so easy for folks that are in fashion to make it seem like such a highbrow thing to people who are not in it. And that's where they hold the power. And for me, I'm just like, no, it's about leveling it. Like, if you don't understand, come here and I'm gonna break it down. Don't ever feel like you can't speak. Because some people will say like, oh, like everyone's talking, so I don't want to. And I'm like, no, jump in, feel free, take space. Don't ask for it. Take it because it's there for you. And that's what I build with my space. Everyone else may not have that, and it may be like, listen to I'm speaking and you're quiet in their space. That's not how it works for me. I speak, you share. I learn, I teach. Like, that's what we're doing. It's an exchange, and I've learned so much and found so many people by just being like, hey, come here and join me.
I love that.
And stay as long as you like. And leave when you feel like it. It's no pressure. Like, this is not me trying to commandeer you as a follower to look at what no, come through and let's talk. And so people will jump in my DMs all the time about things, ask me what I think about things. I'll ask them what they think. Like, it really has become like
I'm
one of my
people.
favorite projects. Yeah, no, shout out to the Young Fleur gang. The garden is strong.
Yes,
shout out to the garden.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, this goes back to my question then, like, because fashion is such a fast-paced industry. It's such a fast-paced, artistry, I guess you can say as well. And so, from where you first started and where we're going now, where would you say is like where do you see fashion going right now? Because I see you talk about trends, I see you talk about hairstyles, I see you talk about a lot of things. So I'm curious from your perspective on where you see fashion is going right now. There's no specific way,
because fashion grows and is growing in various directions at all given times, and certain things, it's kind of like natural selection where certain things just don't work and don't get picked up, and they kind of stop where they stop.
I think one thing that I saw you say was like, oh, I'm so excited for the girls to wear like fur boots or something like that.
Well, I don't know if I said I was excited, but I did say, although I love a good fur boot, but I did notice that like people, that's where the trends are now. Like we've been seeing folks kind of like favoring fur, whether it's real or fake, in like the furry boots, right? And those kind of have always been a thing, but they've found some new prominence in this time and space that we're in. And then it's grown into like people doing like fur belts, fur, tops, fur monokinis, fur bodysuits, fur hats, fur pops of fur armbands, just like pops of fur in places that you wouldn't expect it. And then also like folks are starting to wear real fur now, and like wearing it kind of like not ashamed to. And we were in a place with the faux fur thing and people calling out fur and how like, the unethical practices of, procuring the fur from the animals, the violence against it, and, PETA holding it down. And so like, I feel like folks definitely, and also like every celebrity getting like called down or had paint thrown on them anytime they were out there rocking it.
Yeah.
But now we're in a place where it's swinging back and people are wearing fur with their chest. So as far as where trends are going overall, though, I do think that it's just an experimentational place, and there are people that really want to like have it down to a science and tell you like this is exactly what's going on. But there's a lot because people will tell you this is what's going on because it's their job to tell you what's going on, and you're expecting to get a write-up on what's going on, where there are some things that are just developing and are in their own kind of primordial goo in a way where they're kind of figuring out what they become or where it goes or if it wants to go anywhere. But I do think that like the tendency to want to sell tons of whatever is doing well makes that goo and that process of maturation very stunted. I feel like the way we go with the micro trend thing and like the Instagram, the social media thing, it's interesting because they were talking about, I think, gatekeeping with like Dazed.
I saw you posting about that. Before you came here.
They were talking about the gatekeeping thing.
And what were they saying exactly?
Oh, they were just talking about like to gatekeep or not to gatekeep. Is that okay or not? And like the like maybe it's time to bring it back. And I don't disagree.
Well, I mean, I saw you talking
in some avenues.
I think it just depends on like what we're talking about. Like for example, when when I first met you, I was, well into shooting runway and backstage and shooting models and things like that. And it was so different then because it was like, you didn't really need a phone. You just had like an actual camera. You was actually now it's like if you have a phone, you're a press photographer.
Yeah, you weren't popping your Instagram page to people like that like you do now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like on steroids now. And there was a culture about going to Fashion Week and not only just celebrating the clothes, but celebrating the people that you got to work with, going to the after parties.
Yeah.
And like now, I mean, I'm excited because I want to try to like shoot again this coming season.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're going to talk.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like now I feel like like, you know, there's no central place. And that was the exciting part. I mean, it's great because now people can be all over, but it was great that it was at Lincoln Center. It was great that it was at Bryant Park.
It gave us a sense of order.
Absolutely.
These designers have gotten out of fucking control, girl. Like, y'all all can't keep showing off season of another person's off season because you want to try and get that little piece of media attention when no one else is paying attention to anybody else. I understand that. But also for the people that you want to be documenting your fashion, documenting your work, you are making it very difficult.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand. Like, once again, I feel like there's a lot of like pulling cards and like power plays in our industry.
Yeah.
But it just, when it defeats the purpose and actually makes your purpose more difficult, that's where I lose sight of what's going on. Because like, they can't possibly cover some of these shows. Like, some of these shows go on way too long as well when they are stacked together. So like people are missing shows or running out of shows to catch another show because you want to make yours the moment of the whole Fashion Week season. Like everybody wants to be the moment. And because of this, now we see people tying in other industries, making music even more so an ingrained part of fashion. And so now everything is starting to look like the Savage X Fenty show. And I'm like, y'all, I understand you could get Shorty to break down but can I get a good pair of pants, girl? Can I get a good pair of pants?
Yeah.
I just want next season for me to want to go in your store or your website or whatever and grab everything. And it sucks when like you're casting models who don't really do what the modeling thing like you'd expect. I don't know how you're casting people. Or like it becomes so much of the fluff of like who's on the front row. These are all things that already existed, you know?
Yeah.
The thing is that I feel like the focus on the fashion and the has, I don't know, it's just it's starting to take a back burner to all of the other fluff. You read these runway reviews nowadays and everyone's just telling you, and once again, atmosphere, who's in what row and whatever has always been a part of the thing, but it's become the selling point to get you to the show above all else that the fashion really takes a back burner. So if it's not something that's built to like pop across the screen, even going to shows, I always say most of the time going to shows is more fun watching it on the screen because you got a cameraman coming over your head or blocking the look or other things that are happening in real life that detract from the glamour of it. And then when you see it, the way that they shot it and they set it up and formatted it for the phone, you're like, or for your laptop, you're like, oh, this is an amazing experience. And I'm sitting there like, I should have just sat my ass home instead of trying to, get in there. And I really feel like, people are really just trying to sell right now. People just want to make money right now.
Yeah,
and they're following that wherever it takes them. And I think that's my issue.
Me and a girlfriend was talking about this. Like one brand that's kind of strayed away from that is The Row. Like, I don't know. Do you keep up with them?
I do.
Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts about them?
Are you talking about them doing the camera free?
Yeah, so they don't allow people to bring phones to their shows.
Yeah.
And, like, they're doing really well, but, like, they're also not... There's no hype around The Row at all. And, like, I don't know.
I mean, I think the lack of hype is its own hype with them, though.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that, like, no one is just, I feel like people are choosing The Row because it's, the quiet luxury thing that people have been talking about, but it's like, they're not just going for any old brand. They want The Row. They want like a really good one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and I mean, I think with all of the kind of like the rah-rah of the social media age, like I think people delight in some of those moments where they are denied things. Like I feel like that's one thing when it comes to marketing that some people forget is that like there is something to like the cat and mouse game of giving but so much and leading people on and like making them follow you instead of just laying open and letting them take what they want and move on, because that's where we are now. Like people take it, and it's really sad to see. People will literally take your brand and what you do, and maybe one piece is a hit, and they will wrap you up into a whole trend thing. So suddenly you become, who's the hot new thing? Oh, Adomiko. And then it's like, oh girl, y'all talked about Adomiko all that summer. Don't nobody want that. And it's like, this could be a product that you spent your whole life putting together, and it means a lot to you and your background and whatever. And people picked it up on TikTok. Now they're gonna spit it out, buy it in every color. Somebody's gonna wear it on stage in this color. Dua Lipa's gonna wear it in this color. This person's gonna wear it in this color. This person's gonna wear it in this color. By next time, everyone's like, oh, that piece that they done wore on stage, and you're like, girl, no, it wasn't about just being something for you to wear for the summer. This is a life story and a piece for some people, and now it's just gotten spun out of control because you couldn't control your own narrative, and that's what it's about. It's about controlling the narrative because. One of the beauties about social media now is that we tell our own news. People are news sources, and I think that is the future of fashion, like us becoming our own outlets of all of those things. Like you said, it's become decentralized, and I think it's even more of that. There will still be people that do more of a centralized thing. You know, there's going to be I think a variation, like there's going to be a spectrum of these kind of things. But I do think that we're leaning to a space where like you and your home are a powerhouse. You are a fashion powerhouse. If you've got the means, the intention, and you can consistently post or not consistently post. It depends on what works with your kind of like your scheme. With those girls, like I think we reached the time when that happened, especially because like the Galliano thing had just happened, and there were other little bits and instances of people kind of or shows or productions where people were like, oh, this is like back in the day, like this is like a time in fashion long ago, long forgotten, and we were starting to get glimpses of that, and I think that rode in with that way because remember the Margiela thing happened with the dolls and the broken dolls. That was the same season that the Row said no cameras. So everybody was like, it feels like we're getting old fashioned again because all of that stuff was happening at the same time, and even the runway shows, the girls.
Can you
were
give
like,
a little context about what happened with that show exactly?
Which one?
You said the Margiela and then the one with the dolls.
Well, yeah, Margiela did for their what would that be? SS24 show.
Okay.
Right? No. Yeah, SS24 show. Or is it? Y'all know
Spring,
the one.
Summer, yeah.
Spring, summer, joggers, all that. Yeah. But yeah, they did a show with Galliano because John Galliano is there. Yeah. And John has always been known for his theatrical shows.
Right.
And so he brought the drama. And for John, in general, coming back out after, you know, being quote unquote canceled from his outburst. And coming back to a fashion house and coming back to Margiela and, you know, people feeling like it's the return to fashion because he is such a wonderkin. Yeah. And then bringing that to Margiela, another storied house, and then giving us that drama because in the beginning, John Galliano at Margiela, he wasn't always giving it the way that we knew him to give it. And I think that was on purpose because I feel like he had to display himself with a lot more of a docile, relaxed, kind of like tied in, matured energy to make people feel like he has grown from what that was. But people didn't want him to grow from the collections, from the designs. But he did give a more, not reduced, but calmed down version of himself, even the way he presented himself. And then we started to see the runway shows where they had like Leon Dame and them like stomping and walking. And that felt a little like Galliano. And then we got this show where we got the walks, we got every bit from the looks, the set, everything, walking in that dark room, like, I mean, through the dark tunnel and the shadow cast, it was like the glimmer, the moonlight, like that was the Galliano that everyone knew and loved, and it was coming back. So we had that show, which was amazing. The makeup by Pat McGrath, who had worked with Galliano and Dior before. Yeah. She was his makeup girl back then and was doing the makeup now. So it was just like, it was a comeback moment for a lot of people that longed for that kind of experience of something that was both viral, but not just like someone giving you a jacket with like a $3,000, 3,000 foot long train, because that's what everyone does, or giving you tufts of fabric all wrapped around forever and ever. It's real substance that he was making with that clothing. So people were saying like, you know, it felt like we were having an old school fashion moment back. Galliano's back, fashion is back in that way. And then shortly after that was when the Row had their presentation. I didn't realize and that. They were saying that it was in the same season, and the Row was like no cameras. And there was a conversation. There was just conversation brewing about how like, oh, Galliano show, Galliano like back in the day, the Row telling us to do things like back in the day with no camera, like where like maybe we're, I don't know if it's really gonna stick, but they did their thing. I feel like it did a job of keeping people from. Because people are now posting things on the runway before you even finish the show. Yeah. I would be pissed. Yeah. My Scorpio stuff, I would be tight. So I understand them being like, no, like, and speaking for Mary Kate and Ashley specifically, like all their life has been about people trying to cast narratives on them and tell stories on them. That's I feel like part of the reason they don't talk to no damn body.
Yeah,
because like if you look at all their interviews leading up to it, grown ass people 3 times their age were saying the sickest things, asking the sickest questions. Who's the thinner sister? Who's the funnier one? Or like these kind of things as young girls who were young moguls before they're even 18. Unless we forget the countdown that someone had made of them turning 18. Like these are the things that were leading up to, and the battle the battles with mental health and all of those things, like, and that's what led to them now being like, oh, I'm not saying shit to nobody, and I get it, you know what I mean? So I'm here for a little bit of privacy. We give a lot.
Oh yeah,
we give a lot on the internet for free. We give a lot to the public for free.
And that's what you mean in terms of like gatekeeping, which I totally understand.
Yeah,
and I definitely do feel that yeah, it's okay to keep some type of traditions, but it's also cool to like explore new things. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like there is always gonna be that nostalgic feeling.
Yeah.
But I have 2 more questions for you now.
Do it.
Continue being up to date with all things peace by following the links attached to this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's wrap up the show.
Because of the nature of your work as a press coordinator, as a communications marketing director, communications manager, you hold so many titles as a writer, as a creative director, doing your own personal attributes. What does expansion look like for you?
What does expansion look like for me?
Mm-hmm.
Expansion for me looks like doing all of the things that I'm doing now, with more resources.
I hear you.
And literally asking less questions about how. Yeah. Asking less questions about how, in a sense. Or maybe asking more. You know what I mean? Possibilities is what it is. Expansion means possibilities to me. So if I want to shoot my Young Fleur thing in my home with my overheating ass iPhone and a little cheap ass Five Below stand like I do now, I can do that. If I want to travel to every single season and do that from the privacy of all the finest hotels, I can do that. If I want to bring on whoever I want to bring on, the people that the garden, the people who follow and watch, whoever they want to speak to and get information from, I can tap you and pull you in. It's the access. I think expansion means access and possibility. More access and possibility to do exactly what I do now. So ultimately, doing these conversations and talking with any and everybody. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I was like,
it's the thing.
Yeah,
for real.
literally. So I mean that then goes into, damn, this is what I mean by like
we be here. Look, no, I feel like people are getting only a glimpse of how it be. Because we really be like finishing each other's sentences crazy.
Dead ass. And so I mean, I want to conclude with, how are you producing peace, Mr. Young Fleur?
How am I producing peace?
Yeah.
I am producing peace by how am I producing peace? How do I produce peace? I produce peace by showing love and understanding at every opportunity that I can. Giving grace. Because I know it's not easy. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not easy for all of us. And so I just try to give understanding. I try to give a pause to someone who's been overtalked for forever or for all morning. I try to give a space for you to finish your sentence. I try to give a space for you to say something and feel like someone heard it. And at the very least is giving you some sort of love or encouragement back with everything. I think that's how I produce peace. I try to create spaces to eliminate or minimize stress and cultivate solutions and or at least just being comfortable with where you are. I think I told my friend that's all I pray for. Like certain things I don't understand, certain things are going on that are so crazy in life that I'm like, it hurts. Sometimes it hurts, you know what I mean? And for me, I pray and I'm like, please take the hurt away, take the problem away. Take the problem away. And if you can't take the problem away, or I'm meant to deal with this problem, take the hurt away. Allow me to have this thing come into my mind and not feel like thorns in my brain every time I think about it. Allow me to be at peace. Allow me to hear it and be like, okay. Like that is a blessing. I'd be so thankful. So much shit. Because when you think about certain things, it just makes you cry. It just makes you feel angry. It makes you feel whatever. And I just pray that when I think about that thing, I could just be like, I could look at it and just be like, okay. And not just cry. And I'm looking at you for what you are. And I'm not sitting there thinking about how you make me feel. I'm looking at you. And we're not worried about how we feel. And I want to give that to people. Take away the negative feelings that make you want to run. And let's just be in a place where we can dwell. That's it.
I love that. Ooh, boy, man. All right, shit. You like?
I try to give you a
I was moment because
please
that's real.
Thank you.
All right, so let the people know where they can follow you, where they can keep up with Mr. Eddie Asante, aka Young Fleur.
That's me. You can follow me, of course, at Young Fleur on Instagram and TikTok now because I'm sharing that with the people. And pretty much anywhere else, look up YUNGFLEUR, and you're probably going to find my face there. So yeah, Young Fleur on Instagram, Young Fleur on TikTok. Check out Chris Habana on our Instagram and our TikToks and see what we do. And I'm also on YouTube now, trying to get into the content creator thing. So I'm Young Fleur on there as well. So Young Fleur on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this conversation. It's been... Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, God.